Many of you may recall that Labour promised to cut energy bills after coming to power. However, since taking office, energy costs have continued to rise. To make matters worse, the Labour government is pushing forward with its net zero mission, an initiative that has faced strong criticism from a large portion of the British public. Amidst this growing frustration, Conservative MP Andrew Bowie confronted Labour MP Miata Fula over the soaring energy bills. But instead of addressing the concerns directly, she shifted the blame onto the Tories, insisting that Labour was on the right track. Watch the clip and decide for yourself.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of her statement. Today, the Government has announced an expansion of the Warm Homes discount, a change to the criteria which will see more low-income households receive a £150 payment to heat their homes. But for many, this payment will be immediately eaten up by the increase in the energy price cap. We must be clear. The best protection for vulnerable households is to prioritise cheap energy. The announcement today is, frankly, a sticking plaster approach to rising energy bills. This government fails to grasp the core issue. Our energy costs in this country are far too high for businesses, for industry and, of course, for bill payers. When the energy price cap rose in 2022, the now Secretary of State called it a national emergency. He called for an urgent freeze on energy bills. He called it a lack of leadership. Now in government, the only thing he's able to freeze is vulnerable pensioners by taking away their winter fuel allowance with no notice. Does she think this shows leadership? I know that my constituents, and presumably hers too, will be concerned about their bills rising, concerned about inflation creeping back up, hitting 3% in January, despite the hard work done last year to bring it under control, and angry that Labour's promise to cut bills by £300 is being broken. But the worst part of all this, Mr. Speaker, is that this government, led by ideological zealotry from the Secretary of State, is doubling down. Their obsession with going further and faster than any country in the world to meet their own self-imposed 2030 target is going to increase people's bills even further. The renewables industry has warned that their rush to build record renewables in the next 5 years will push up prices and I quote, consumers will lose out. The government's rush to build twice as much grid in the next 5 years as has been built in the last decade will increase the network costs on people's bills. And the OBR has said that the environmental levies will increase to £14 billion in 2030, largely driven by the hidden cost of renewables, all of which will end up on people's energy bills. The Labour Party were not honest about their promise to cut bills by £300 during the election. They were not honest about their plan to take the winter fuel payment away from millions of pensioners living in poverty. And now they are not being honest with the British people about what their plans will do to our energy bills. If there is anything we have learnt over the last few years, it's that the cost of energy is absolutely critical to any modern economy. We cannot go on following ideology over evidence and putting political targets ahead of what will cut the cost of energy in this country. But this government is in denial. That's why they scrapped the fuel system cost analysis commissioned when we were in office. I have to ask the Minister, when will proposals for a debt relief scheme be published? Can she confirm how much she expects levies to increase over the next 5 years? Will she commission a fuel systems cost analysis of what the 2030 target will do to people's energy bills? And will she confirm how much bills will rise by before we see the £300 off what we were all promised?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The honourable member is right that energy prices are too high. On that we agree. And we also agree that that is worrying for families and businesses across the country. But what I would point out to him is that 80% of the rise that we have seen this time has been driven by wholesale prices. And I would gently remind him that the reason why we are in this position, the reason why we are so exposed to global fossil fuel prices that we have no control over, is because his party spent 14 years in government squandering the opportunity to accelerate the transition to clean power, squandering the opportunity to reduce our dependence on global fossil fuel prices, and leaving families across the country exposed. The status quo is not tenable. We are at the point where energy prices are at a historic high under his government. Now, that is a status quo that we are not willing to contend with. And that is the very reason, not because of ideology, but because we see the obvious. As long as we are dependent on global fossil fuel prices, we will will be on this roller coaster. And that is the thing that is driving the push to clean power. The party opposite has no alternatives. We have a clear alternative. We run to clean power, but whilst we do that, we provide support to the most vulnerable households in the short term. The debt support scheme, to answer his question, Ofgem are in the process of consulting on that debt support scheme as we speak, and we will support them to put that in place because we know that the debt burden has increased by 3.8 billion, and we think that there is over 1.8 million households that will help and be supported by that. And we are absolutely committed to cutting bills. Everything we are doing as a government is driven by that desire and that clear commitment to cut bills down. We will do that in terms of short-term measures, but critically, we will do that by running at clean power by 2030. We have a plan to deal with energy bills. The party opposite has a plan to slow down, do nothing, and it will be the British public that pay the price.
It seems like Labour is out of touch with the real struggles people are facing. Instead of addressing the rising challenges caused by their poor decisions, they appear more focused on ambitious projects that, frankly, don't seem likely to succeed. What do you think? Does this Labour government have what it takes to lead the UK? If you believe they're falling short, hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss.